Hello, this is Fishy Swa. Just kind of to come to you with a quick video today. Keep things rolling a little bit, falling behind. So right now what I'm building up to is a video trying to explain the different processes of magic. Maybe I'll be able to cover most of them through the course of this game. We'll see. So today we're going to be playing a game in Standard. Midnight Hunt has just been released. And I am playing here a deck built around sacrifice. It's almost mono black. Almost. Got too many duels in here, oddly enough. So we'll see about getting this to a better, more balanced point some point in the near future. Right now, I'm going to look at this as an opportunity to talk about the processes of magic. The processes of magic break down broadly into two categories. Material flow processes and decision processes. The more obvious of those that you can deal with are the material flow processes. And those start with the basic, where we move cards from our deck to our hand, or lands into our mana base, or mana from our mana base onto our mana pool, and then spells from our hand onto the stack. So we've got a number of different processes there that lead to different balances between them. On the decision flow side of things, we have a number of other processes, and those processes tend to be things like how are we sequencing our spells and effects, how are we prioritizing our spells, what value are we getting out of them, and ultimately how we are interacting with our opponent and gaining strategic advantage. So to talk about the material flow processes in light of the theory of constraints, the primary thing we're looking at here is identifying those the flows that are most impacted and making sure that we get everything we need out of those flows. For example, if we find that cards are our primary constraint, well, you might ask how we can identify cards as our primary constraint. Well, the easiest way to do that is to look at what our hands look like at the end of a game. If our hands are particularly thin, like one card or no cards, whether we win or lose, at that point in the game we can be pretty sure that the thing that was relatively active in that game was our lack of cards. So well, that was different. We'll see just how smoothly this runs, though. So once we've identified our lack of cards as our constraint, we don't immediately go to gain more cards. We don't immediately try to use card advantage to alleviate our problems. Before we do that, we need to look at making sure we get the most out of our cards, and making sure that our cards are not dependent on things that are not available consistently. In particular, this tends to mean that we need to play our cards with an eye towards their independence, and we need to play our cards with an eye, or our removal spells, or interaction spells, with an eye towards flexibility. So if we keep everything flexible, we often not end up with dead cards. Using card constraint, drawing extra cards, ending up with dead cards is the thing we most want to avoid. So we exploit by making sure that our cards actually function every time we draw them. So we want removal that is or interaction that is incredibly flexible, and proactive elements that are always available to us. We subordinate by ridding ourselves of cards that are the opposite, cards that are too dependent on synergy to be worth playing alone, because we're going to be in top deck mode some fraction of the time. Oddly enough, when you actually start focusing on your cards this way, you'll generally find that the card constraint itself just goes away. That actually what you had was you weren't getting enough out of your cards independently, and now that you're doing that, your opponent your constraint actually moves up the chain to the next stage, to some relevant part of mana. But sometimes it does not. And then you move on to you exploit, you subordinate, and then you elevate. That is when only at elevate do we actually look to actively draw more cards. Those additional cards we're looking to draw we're looking specifically for additional card draw. Remember, we've already changed the deck. We've reduced the amount of elements that are not independent. We've preferably eliminated them altogether. And because of that, we are left with only the we are left with only those cards that work independently and therefore are highly redundant and don't need to be worked on their own. How do I want to run this? I'm thinking here I'm just trying to push through some damage. So I'm going to play me a Warlock class. And this Predator. This turn is, I think, the critical turn for what this game is going to end up looking like. So, with that played out that way, I'm going to attack with 1 token, so something dies. So here, to take a break from discussing that card-related thing, here I seem to be constrained more by... well, it's not entirely clear. We're at a crossroads. My opponent has a lot of mana. If they can use that mana well, I think I'm going to end up being constrained by their own interactions with me. It's a hard thing to actually fix for until I see more typically what this kind of deck does. And I haven't done a lot of research into this format just yet. It is just a few days old. Let us see where we are. They're doing a lot of spells. Oh, yes, you've got a 7/7. That's fine. We can work with that. You're going to attack me with your 7/7. I thought you might. How do you feel about indestructible blockers? Feel good? I feel good. Let's take out... these come back. Let's take out the Behold. Let's keep the pressure on them. That's where I want to be right now. Keep the pressure on them, especially since I'm using it, doubling it as a way to keep their graveyard in check. There's a pretty good chance that they've got a spell or two in here that either returns cards from their graveyard or depends on counting instants and sorceries in their graveyard. This is a black deck. Don't let the dual lands fool you. There's only one white. There are only one set of white spells and one set of red spells, or I suppose 2. There's the Predators and the Ecstasies. Yes, yes, draw your cards. That's fine. Looking forward to it, honestly. I'm going to send that 7/7 back at me. I'd love it. Give me a great excuse to chump with the Ghast. Let's just get the indestructible out of that while we can. No attackers. Okay. I think we just go to my turn. Village writes the Ghast. This way we get a token out of this too. Kill the flyer. This Predator does work, doesn't it? Okay. See, you're at 10. I'm seeing 3 more damage not on the board. So let's. Oh, yes. So let's hit them. I see 2 more damage not on the board. Let's hit them for 8 in the air. Or in the air. 8 mana, 8 damage. Warlock class number 1 will do 1. Warlock class number 2 will do the rest. Opponent should concede here. So, to be brief, today we talked about theory of constraints, the processes of magic. We've got some more details to add to that upcoming, and we've got some more details to add to the cards as a constraint, as well as to go through the other processes of magic as a constraint. As it is, I feel that's a pretty good place to pause, and we'll get back to you on actually getting some details in. Thank you for watching along. We'd love to see your comments, any likes for the new video format, and please share and subscribe. Look forward to seeing you again.